Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ocean Harvest Technology Group PLC full year results investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses where it's appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. And before we begin, I would just like to submit the following poll, and if you would give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. And I would now like to hand you over to the management team from Ocean Harvest Technology Group. Mark, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much for the introduction and welcome everybody to our presentation today. Just quick intros. A number of you have met me before and seen me on the screen. Mark Williams, I'm the CEO and been with the business over a couple of years. And before that, most recently was involved in the insect protein business. I've got two new colleagues with me here today, so I'll hand over to Nico and Chris to give themselves a brief introduction.
Thank you very much, Mark. Nico Stein, responsible for the commercial part in Ocean Harvest Technology for 2 months now, having previously worked in the animal nutrition and feed additive business for companies like Emporio and Biome.
Thank you, Nico. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Scott. I joined the business as CFO in mid-January. Most recently, I was finance director at Friesland Campina for the UK, a large global dairy business. Prior to that, I worked for Kimberly-Clark across a number of senior finance roles in both the UK and covering the EMEA.
Great, thank you. Look, I think most of you know the business. I've got a one-page refresher as to what we do, because I know you look at a lot of companies. The business produces out of a blend of different seaweeds a highly functional feed ingredient that goes into animal feed. It was formed on the basis of the research which Ocean Harvest Technology has done, which demonstrates that the bioactive compounds such as polysaccharides and others in these seaweeds have a prebiotic effect in the gut of animals. And the trials that we have conducted for many years has consistently demonstrated that when included as an ingredient at around 1/4%, we consistently see higher growth rates, lower mortality, and greater feed efficiency. We've applied the product across multiple commercial channels, but Nico will cover the commercial proposition of the products a bit later on in the presentation. We're here today to talk about the highlights from our first full financial year as a publicly listed company. And there's a lot of good things to talk about. In terms of top line growth, the key message there is around the 28% increase in the growth of our core product, our ocean feed blended seaweed product. We've seen this flow down into improvements in profitability, both at the gross margin and the EBITDA line, and both of those half on half and year on year. Pleasingly, the improvements in profitability have come from developments across the three key areas that we focus and invest in our business. In sales and marketing, we've grown our customer base and opened new markets. In the supply chain, we've doubled the amount of seaweed that we purchased in 2023 versus 2022. And in our IP, intellectual property developments, we've had great progress in terms of patents granted and trial results reported. And the company is in a much stronger financial position than it was clearly this time last year before the IPO. So we've got the IPO proceeds, cash on balance sheet, and access to debt facilities as well to grow the business going forward. You can see from this slide, the core top line growth is driven, as I said, from the ocean feed product growth and revenue. We do sell single seaweed products that we've talked about before, but the ocean feed product is our proprietary product, higher value, higher margin product. It's also very sticky with customers, so it's important for us to continue to grow that because it gives great visibility to growth in the future. The business continues to sell its products globally. You can see there a good split of sales across all continents. And geographically, we opened a number of new markets. So in Asia, we opened India, Korea, and Taiwan with first-time sales in 2023. We were really pleased, actually, with the progress here in the UK. We had really good growth in the UK with the onboarding of a new large customer, and also in another core business in North America. Since year end, we've had product registration in Brazil, so we expect that to be another new market for next year. I mentioned the improvements in profitability. That is shown in the gross margin line, where we grew gross margin from 38.1% to 38%. Again, this is not just from one improvement factor. This has been generated through improvements in a number of areas in the business. So clearly, by having a greater proportion of the sales into the ocean feed product, that gives us a higher overall margin because it's a higher margin product. We've onboarded the new ocean feed customers at higher price points, and we've worked to move the pricing from our legacy ocean feed customers up as well. And they're happy to take those price rises and still see value at that level. Outside of pricing, within the supply chain, we've made great progress in improving the quality of the seaweed that we've sourced through the year. Essentially, that means less impurities, less other substances in the seaweed. So there's less processing losses, and that flows straight through to improvements in gross margin. And also, at the end of 2022, we put some equipment changes in place in our factory in Vietnam, and we saw the improvements from that flow through to the gross margin line. So I'll now hand over to Nico to take you through some of the market proposition of our products.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm really delighted to be able to speak to you today and to share with you a positive and very promising outlook from a commercial perspective on Ocean Harvest technology. At Ocean Harvest technology, as Mark touched before, we do not just sell straight seaweed. We do sell our species-specific and uniquely composed blends of seaweed, which are research tested and proven to support health and performance of livestock and companion animals. This enables us to position ocean feed as a premium brand, continuously raising brand awareness and brand reputation globally. A second reason to underline that positive outlook in terms of growth potential for Ocean Harvest technology is our geographical focus. We have carefully analyzed and selected markets, regions, and species to sell into in order to make use of the prime growth opportunities we found. And giving you examples for that is the US pork belt located around the Great Lake area in the Midwest of the US, which does represent 88.3% of the overall pork production in that region and in North America. Besides that, in Asia, we are digging deeper into a double-digit growing dairy sector. And across Europe, as you will know, the topic of sustainability becomes more and more important for our customers. With all these examples and even more, we are able to offer tailor-made solutions to our customer. The third, and in my eyes, the main reason to be successful in and very positive in terms of growth outlook is the performance of our product. We do sell real long-term monetary benefits to our customers. First example from the swine sector with ocean feed swine, we did not only manage to bring antibiotic usage down and increase meat yields, but also and simultaneously we managed to bring mortality rates down, which resulted in higher returns on investment for our customers. A second example from poultry, on the bars you can clearly see with the ocean feed poultry, we did manage to increase the number of sellable eggs in layers as well as the meat yield in broilers, which led to much higher profit and more sellable end products for our customers. So how do we get to these customers? So we do focus from main and major feed and livestock producing accounts globally down to mid-size and small structured production units. Reason for that being the major accounts in feed and livestock production are not only our main target, but also the main influencers along the animal nutrition value chain. Looking at mid-size and small structured production units, we do have still up to 70% across Asia and Europe producing the livestock output at that level. This is why we do sell direct and indirect in order to cover the channel selected and penetrate the markets we choose. And a great example for our success in direct sales has been recently our first sales into a huge UK premix company using our products across multiple species and selling these premixes then into the already mentioned major accounts of feed and livestock production. Another great example for indirect sales success in Ocean Harvest Technology is Korea. Here we managed last year to partner with a new distributor, starting with the first container order end of last year, continuing strong with a 2 container order in Q1 this year, having already announced increasing demand for across this year. So you can clearly see from what I've just told you, the potential to grow for ocean feed globally is immense. Looking at a global feed additive market from around $40 billion, still growing, desperate for innovation and hungry for sustainable solutions. Just by looking at leveraging our existing customers and making full use of the customers we do have in the pipeline on trials, from what we can see today, able to reach up to 10 times our recent turnover. So the ocean feed is not just another feed additive product. With the ocean feed products, we do add real difference to animal nutrition. Having said this, I'd like to hand over to Mark again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nico. We made a lot of developments on the supply chain during the financial year 2023. In fact, as I said at the outset, we doubled the amount of seaweed we purchased in that year versus the previous year. We've attempted to put that into some context for you and have calculated that we sourced 42 Olympic swimming pools volumes worth of seaweed during the year last year. So we're not a small cultivator of seaweeds. Clearly, we have a very large global supply chain feeding into our production. How have we increased the volumes? Well, new regions. So we sourced from the Philippines for the first time since pre-COVID. Within our other core Southeast Asian markets of Indonesia and Vietnam, we worked with new suppliers, but also worked with our existing suppliers to expand the geographic remit from which they are sourcing the seaweed. And we had great success with our first time sourcing in Eastern Africa, where there's large biomass available and a well-mobilized workforce to help harvest that. In addition to sourcing greater volumes, we've also looked to put more strategic alignment in place with some of our suppliers. An example is a supplier of brown seaweed. Brown seaweed tends to have a little bit more volatility in it in terms of supply, volume, and price. So we worked with one of our suppliers and actually lent them some money to increase their capacity. In return for that, we have got fixed offtake now on volume and price for that seaweed over the next couple of years. During the year, we also invested the time and the money to do a full life cycle analysis of our product and map the carbon footprint of it. Now, the result of this, of looking at from where the seaweed is sourced, harvested, through our processing and ultimate shipment to our end customers, is that our total direct CO2 footprint of our product at 433 kilograms per ton is significantly lower than the similar footprint of any other ingredient that goes into animal feed, pretty much. And that is something that customers are increasingly asking us about. On the bottom, we can actually demonstrate that for a customer who uses our product in feed, if you combine the amount of CO2 that the seaweed absorbs, you take out the footprint that we have from the small footprint we have from our processing, and then take into account the reduced feed that the animal consumes because our product improves feed efficiency. The net total is that for 1 ton of ocean feed used by our customer, they are taking 10 tons of CO2 equivalent out of the feed chain. as Nico said, particularly in some markets, this is becoming an increasing focus and marketing opportunity for us. And so it's great in the year we've been able to document this and share this all with customers. We similarly have tracked the social benefits of our supply chain. I've talked to some of you about these before, but we've tracked this, and we can demonstrate that each village or community that we work with in the supply chain has earned tens of thousands of US dollars a year of additional economic value, either through the revenue that they get from selling the seaweed or the investment that goes into their communities to help source that seaweed. We have strict policies in place, both in terms of the sustainability of the harvesting practices, but also the responsibility of the labour practices. And we are putting certifications in place to be able to demonstrate this with external validation. Now moving on to our progress with intellectual property developments. Firstly, patents. We put an announcement out actually only a few weeks ago, post year end, because we were granted a really important all-encompassing patent. This patent, in its 32 pages, in summary says that the seaweed blended product that we produce has a prebiotic effect in animals. And it goes into the details of the actual bacterial composition changes that it produces, but it has a prebiotic effect. It goes on to protect the claims that this leads to higher growth rates in the animals, as well as improved feed efficiency and lower mortality. Importantly, the patent covers a wide range of animals, so all of our target markets are covered from there, and it also covers a broad range of seaweed blends, recipes, etc. So it covers basically our whole product line as well. So you can see when I say it's an all-encompassing product, patent, it really covers the core commercial proposition of our business. Clearly, this provides us with a great competitive advantage. No one can challenge the claims that we're making from the product we're using with this now issued. And similarly, others can't move into the space and try and make these claims by using a blended seaweed ingredient. An all-encompassing patent with its claims like the ones I've just outlined, to me, sort of is an external verification of first mover advantage. And I think this is a great endorsement of the innovation that Ocean Harvest Technology is bringing to the animal nutrition space. We received another patent during 2023, which was specific to laying birds, covering the increased amount of eggs or number of egg laying days that the layers would have, as well as the increased eggshell strength. That was also issued, as I said, during 2023. Both of these have been issued by the UK authorities, but there are similar applications working their way through the systems in the EU, US, and other relevant jurisdictions. On trial results, we've announced all these during the year, so I won't dwell on them. The layer data I've just really referred to when I talked about the patent. In the middle, there was good data on performance results in aqua, both fish and shrimp, and that is clearly a developing and important target market for us. And on the right-hand side is data which is a bit different because we'd had a lot of data which demonstrated performance in normal sort of animal production systems. The data on the right was the first data we really published covering performance of animals in the presence of disease challenges. Now, clearly, these are conducted in universities and not in commercial sites because of the presence of disease. But both with Vibrio, which is the largest disease problem in shrimp, and necrotic enteritis, which is one of the biggest problems facing poultry production, the survivability of the animal with the ocean feed in their diet was materially higher than for those without, and there's clearly great commercial opportunities there. We are excited about the pipeline of R&D which is going on at the moment. So we will be reporting trials in these areas during 2024. With cattle, we've got a lot of data which demonstrates on a farm level size that we've got good performance. In order to demonstrate that on a large scale to scientific significance, we're having to go to the universities to do that. So we have a trial going on in beef in a Canadian university and in dairy in a very well-respected European agricultural university. We've used the proceeds, some of the proceeds of the IPO for this because they're expensive, but we have also got government funding on both of those for 50% of the project. So these are focused on and are measuring the performance benefits on a large scale in both of these trials. And they are also measuring the methane emissions alongside that. We think it's very important, if doing anything to demonstrate any form of reduction in methane emissions, that is done alongside a demonstration of the production benefits as well. Because whilst in the future it may be the case, at the moment producers aren't getting paid to reduce methane emissions. So they need to see that there are production benefits, like more milk production or greater quality milk production, or at the very least that there's no downside impact on production from using these additives. So both of those trials will report during 2024. We're going to report a sow trial, which is ongoing. We've got lots of data. We've shared it all with you before on the performance in piglets. And this is really just designed to demonstrate that how those benefits are hopefully amplified when the ocean feed ingredient is fed to the mothers. And this would be a big commercial opportunity for us. And salmon, we've got a trial going on there, commercial scale at a research institute. Clearly, it's an industry which is riddled with challenges. And so we'll be measuring the performance against those challenges and maybe even get a read through, not just through salmon, but to other areas of the aqua chain. So I'll now hand over to Chris to take us through more details of the results that we've reported this morning.
Thank you, Mark. So first to the chart on the left-hand side, this is a bridge showing the significant revenue growth delivered by the business from 21 through to 2023. An important call out here is effectively all of our growth in 2023 has been delivered by profitable ocean feed blends, up 28% year on year. Looking to the pie chart on the right-hand side, our regional split, you can see good regional diversification with North America and EMEA being our largest two markets. In terms of profitability, Mark talked to this at the top of the deck, but just to give you some more detail, margin has been strong year on year, increasing from 31% gross margin in 2022 to 37.6% in 2023. We've also seen an improvement H2 versus H1, with H2 margins coming in at 39.5%. Looking at the drivers of margin performance, I've split out the absolute gross profit delivered in 22 at 800k on the bottom left chart, building up to the 1.1 million of GP we delivered in 2023. And importantly, year on year, you can see across all three key levers of gross profit, we're in growth. So first of all, volume and mix growth, growing profitable customers and profitable products. Secondly, pricing. So we delivered price increases across our customer base in 2023, from which we'll see an annualization benefit in 2024. And finally, in terms of COGS, we've seen a significant COGS improvement through the levers Mark talked to you earlier, i.e. better seaweed sourcing, lower yield losses and production efficiencies from our Vietnam factory. Thank you, Mark. So taking us next to our summary income statement, we've effectively talked to the top half of the P&L in the earlier slides, so I'll start at gross profit. So from the 1.1 million of GP we delivered in 2023, OPEX costs incurred were 3.3 million. So relatively stable year on year, given the growth the business has seen, up less than 5% year on year. The business invested significantly pre-IPO, and we don't expect high inflation in our cost base going forward. At an adjusted EBITDA level, minus 2.2 million, so an improvement year on year through operational leverage. At a profit before tax level, of course, taking into account the IPO costs, one-offs incurred in March 2023. Next to our cash flow statement. So operating cash flows before movement in working capital, we've seen an improvement year on year through that better EBITDA performance. In terms of working capital, we invested significantly in year at 1.2 million, with a lion's share of that being in inventory. So significant stock build ahead of our 2024 growth plan. Moving down the cash flow statement, cash used in investing activities, relatively stable. That accounts for our factory PPE in Vietnam and R&D spend. And finally, cash generated through financing activities at 4.9 million, of course, the net proceeds from the IPO, but partially offset by repayment of a related party loan. taking us to a strong net cash position at year end of 2.6 million. Finally, to our balance sheet, calling out a couple of highlights. So trade payables, good news is we are at a better trade payables number in terms of days, trade receivables. We're at a better days trade receivables year on year at 94 days, despite strong Q4 net sales. In terms of inventory, this is where we're seeing that big stock build I talked to in the earlier slide. So an absolute stock position of 1.5 million euros, and in terms of days, just shy of 240 days. So I am expecting that number to come down significantly, certainly in terms of days throughout 2024, now that we've got better visibility and a more global seaweed sourcing supply chain. Also to note that since year end, we have secured a receivables financing facility up to 2 million euros, which will further support cash flows for the year. In summary, in terms of balance sheet, a strong position coming into 2024.
Great, thanks, Chris. Just quickly on the overall outlook, we've talked about progress in a number of areas today. And in short, we expect those areas to continue with progress through 2024. On the top line growth, as I said, the ocean feed product is our core focus. We see good visibility of new customers coming on board with that. It's very sticky revenue, so once we have those customers, we have good visibility on future sales. To help grow that, in addition to some of the initiatives we talked about, we are expanding the channels that we're going to those customers on, so that we've got the direct, but we also have the indirect helping us target, I guess, the middle ground, and just getting the use of salespeople, so sales agents and distributors to help multiply the expansion. I've noted here that a number of companies through this results season who are in the animal nutrition space have talked about tough end market conditions. And we certainly see that within various protein markets that is the case. However, it's not the demand of the end protein market at the moment which is driving our growth. Because we're small, we're bringing an innovative product, a product that solves a number of the solutions to these challenges in the end protein market. Those are the factors that are driving our growth. And so we are, I guess, achieving our growth despite of some of these challenges in the end markets. On our profitability, we've talked about a number of factors contributing to that impressive profitability growth during 2023. In short, we expect those factors to continue. So on the top line growth, the improvement margin through sourcing and processing will continue to see and drive improvements. The supply outlook is very strong. The company has got access and visibility to more supply than it needs. That creates opportunities in itself. And we can also utilize that to make sure that we get the results that we want when it comes to quality and pricing. And finally, on IP developments, I've mentioned we've got a number of great trials ongoing at the moment. We will report those during the year. And they've all been designed to further enhance the commercial opportunity that we could capitalize on through the year. So with that, I think I will open this to questions. And I hand back to Jake to be able to kick that off.
Perfect. Mark, Nico, Chris, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Let me just bring back up your cameras there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab that's situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company takes a few moments to review those questions that were submitted already, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Mark, as you can see there in the Q&A tab, we have received a number of questions throughout your presentation this afternoon. And thank you to all of those on the call for taking the time to submit their questions. But Mark, if I may at this point, sir, just hand over to you to chair the Q&A with the team, and then I'll pick up from you at the end. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So there's a question here, but has there been any one key catalyst for the increase in sales in customers and ocean feed? The answer to that is no. There's been multiple catalysts. We brought on, I think, 15 new customers last year. And I guess it's a reflection of understanding what the end customer's interest is, what their problems are, what they're looking to solve, and marketing into that. It's also been different between the direct and the indirect customers, and Nika gave you examples of that, where in Taiwan and Korea, we've worked with distributors who themselves have been very effective getting to their customer base and growing our market there. Nico, would you comment on anything further on that?
Thanks, Mark. As Mark said before, it's not one key catalyst. It's just a fact, as I presented before, we are digging deeper into understanding where the best fit for our product in the different regions and markets are. So this is the main way forward that gives us clear visibility on where to grow what on what base. And it's just more than just one catalyst.
Yeah. Similar sort of question: how would you expand both the market presence and customer base, in new markets like Brazil or otherwise? Nico.
So basically, we did choose the shortest way towards conversion, meaning taking this example of Brazil. It's a vast market, a huge country, so we do need to go most of the parts indirect through distributors on location, whereas in other markets which are geographically smaller or where we do target only 1 to 2 species based on the market potential, we'd rather go through kind of sales partners, sales agents, and where we do see prime growth opportunities, we try to go as direct as possible.
I guess just to add, where we work with distributors, it's not as simply a matter of us just selling the product and leaving them to it. There's a lot of co-marketing where our salespeople market with them to get the benefits of the product across. You're then leveraging the sales force of the distributor to go and magnify that across a large market like Brazil. Whereas in the US, in the pig belt that Nico talked about, we have someone located there and they're going around banging the doors of all those very large pork producers in that part of the country. There's a question here on gross margin. What do you think is achievable? Not giving a forecast gross margin, but I guess we are comfortable saying that new ocean feed customers coming on board have been onboarded over 40%. I mean, we reported a blended gross margin in the second half last year of 39.5%, which is higher than the full year of 38% or 37.8%, I think it was. So yeah, we're confident that new customers coming on board will be in excess of that level. Okay, question here. I'm just focusing on the sales levels one before turning to the other questions. What are the general constraints on your existing customers from increasing their purchases from Ocean Harvest Technology? I'm going to go first and see what you want to add there, Nico. It's usually where the customer uses it. So, for example, some customers where we're going direct, they're using it in their production systems across an entire species or across an entire production unit. In some of our customers, there's definitely opportunities to increase sales by going into additional production units or additional species. And we are working on some of those examples. With the customer, which is a customer of ours, but it's an indirect channel, they are pushing it out to their end customers. So that's where we have opportunity for greater growth. I wouldn't say there's a constraint. It's usually, in the case of a direct customer, the decision to go into different species and to go into different units. And that's an onus on us and our sales team to make sure that they're constantly thinking and assessing that. And then the constraints for those managing our indirect channels, look, they manage a lot of products. So it's Nico's and his sales team's job to make sure our product is front of mind. We're giving them the marketing support. We're going alongside them to see their customers to push that. But there's no real constraints from a supply side or a registration side that stops them selling or using anymore. Anything else? Right, so I'm going to go to, there's a question here directed to Nico. Clearly someone's saying, we've heard enough from you, Mark. Given all the feed additives out there, what was it most attracted you to joining Ocean Harvest? Yes, Nico's joined us in the last couple of months.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, there's quite a bit that got me excited in joining Ocean Harvest Technology and digging deeper into the ocean feed products. The one thing that resonates very well from the market is the fact that compared to any other feed materials and feed additives on the market, who do need additional energy, fresh water, and other additives to be put in for the products to work, we don't have that. We take a fully natural product available by nature, dry it, process it, do not add any preservative agents or trickling aids or carriers. So it's a pure natural product that gives us a maximum value proposition in terms of quality, sustainability, and as you've seen on the examples we shared, in terms of profitability.
Compared to your most recent
So,
experience?
as said at the beginning, there is no other product. So if you look at the area of natural feed additives, I've been selling a Oregostim product, oregano essential oils, before for 3 years, growing that business from $500,000 to around 6 million. Even though there are a lot of products around, these products do still use synthetic emulsifiers, carriers, as said before, and that is something that really differs from what we have to offer. And this resonates very well with the market and their expectation, as the market is still growing, as I mentioned before, and we have a product, fortunately, that is being searched and asked for by the market.
Okay, question on supply chain. How are you ensuring a sustainable and reliable seaweed supply to support your growth numbers, and where do you see this coming from? So on the sustainability point, I guess a reminder is that the majority of the seaweed that we use is invasive. So they're wild blooming seaweeds that occur, in large volumes just off the coast, usually coming off because there's excess nutrients in the sea, and so these seaweeds bloom. So they occur naturally, and in a lot of cases, because they are invasive, they're ecologically damaging to the areas that they're found in. So they can clog up the bays. They definitely extract oxygen from the sea, and that depletes or drives away the fish stocks in the area. So the very fact of us taking these seaweeds out of the sea is in itself a sustainability benefit. It improves the biodiversity, it takes the seaweed out of the sea, prevents a situation like eutrophication, where the seaweed rots, drops to the bottom of the sea, or sits on the beach and releases carbon, nitrates, and phosphates into the sea. So that very act itself improves the sustainability. There are some days where we have been sourcing seaweed for 10 years, and there'll be an occasional year of seasonal fluctuation, but we pretty consistently see that these blooms recur and come back. And certainly the local communities there are now grateful that they can remove that so it doesn't interrupt their fishing activities, and get some extra money for it. Where do we see this coming from? I outlined in the presentation, we've grown last year from a predominantly Southeast Asian-based source for our red and green seaweeds to more countries in Southeast Asia and Eastern Africa. We're scoping other parts of the Southern Hemisphere, South America, for example, where there is significant biomass. The brown seaweeds come from the North Atlantic. They are attached to the seabed, and they get, to answer the sustainability question, they get harvested once every 2 years, so they can replenish. And there's a fairly well-established supply chain of those. The government's involved there to make sure that's sustainable, across Nordic, North America, and other European countries. So that's how we see that there. Most of the seaweed stories you hear about are involving cultivated seaweeds. We're pretty sure we're one of the largest sources of wild seaweeds globally, and have greater visibility over the future of that than others. There's another sort of follow-up question, I guess. Can we speak about the capacity in terms of harvesting and processing, and how that will develop over the next few years? And what does that mean for CapEx and cash flow? Okay, so I commented on the seaweed supply. In terms of capacity, we have our factory in Vietnam. It's got a processing capacity at the moment of just under 6,000 tons. we produced just under 2,000 tonnes in 2023. We used to have the view that that was the capacity of that facility, and that we would need to build somewhere else if we wanted to go past that. During the year, we've done some work, and we think we can pretty efficiently double that capacity up to sort of 10 to 12,000 tonnes as and when we need to, without a lot of capex, by using extra shifts and putting some additional equipment in place there. Having said that, we have also explored some pretty cost-efficient ways of getting some production in another market if we're looking for diversification. So in short, we aren't expecting a very large capex build to come through for a new facility anytime soon. As I said, we're just under 2,000 tonnes in 2023, and we see good visibility to 5-6 times that in our current facility. What would that mean for revenues? God, that would mean we'd be over 20 million euros of revenue before we had to move. But as I said, we may choose to have an additional production source elsewhere, because I think we can do that efficiently as well if we want to. A question here on competitors. So I guess the first step is there's no competitor in terms of a blended seaweed provider. You know, we go to these exhibitions and trade shows for animal nutrition. There's thousands of exhibitors. We're the only blended seaweed product there. Interestingly, there's probably 24 insect protein, which is another interesting technology that's coming up, of them there, but that's now proving very competitive. Seaweed is not proving very competitive. But as Nico said, we're competing against existing additives. Do you want to comment? I mean, you mentioned it before. Do you want to comment a bit more on the competitive landscape?
I think I mentioned before. So what we might see as what you put here as main competitors is basically those companies that do produce a natural feed additive targeting gut health in general. It's an extremely wide sector. So most of the phytogenics are selling probiotics. We do have a prebiotic in place that gives us advantage within the digestion of the livestock animals. So again, natural feed additives might be, in a broader sense, competitors. But as Mark said before, the ocean feed blends are really unique to everything you might find on the market.
Good, Jake. That looks to be all the questions in the bar.
Mark, absolutely, and Nico and Chris as well. Thank you very much indeed for being so generous of your time then addressing all of those questions that came in from investors. And of course, if there are any further questions that do come through, we'll make these available to you immediately after the presentation has ended, just for you to review, to then add any additional responses, of course, where it's appropriate to do so. And we'll publish all those responses out on the platform. But Mark, perhaps before really just looking to redirect those on the call to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to yourself and the company, if I could please just ask you for a few closing comments to wrap up with, that'd be great.
Yeah, certainly. So we've reported progress today in a number of areas. You know, as a reminder, the key areas that we are constantly focused on and looking to get improvements in is sales and marketing, research and development, and supply chain. We are confident that we will continue through 2024 to report progress in all of those as well, which will flow through to ongoing improvements in profitability. So thank you for your time. Thank you for those of you who continue to be very supportive of us, and we look forward to delivering more progress in the next year. So speak to you in the next few months.
Perfect, Mark, that's great. And thank you once again for updating investors this afternoon. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can really better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Ocean Harvest Technology Group PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good afternoon to you all.